my name is Suzie LeBlanc. I'm the Artistic and Executive Director of Early Music Vancouver. It's my great pleasure today to speak with our artist in residence for the Early Music Vancouver Summer Festival in 2026, Magali Simard-Galdès. Magali is a wonderful soprano who has a multifaceted career, a very brilliant international career that she's built. And I'm looking forward to exploring some of the facets of your fantastic singing career and other things that might surprise our listeners. So hello, Magali, and welcome.
Hi. Hi, Susie.
So Magali, you are from Montreal and you're based in Montreal, but you're now speaking to us from Europe where you just arrived. So we're really
Yes.
grateful that you're taking the time to speak to
Yeah.
us. Tell us what takes you to Europe at the time.
I have a concert in a few days at the Halle Festspiele, the Handel Festspiele with Concert Spirituel. So I'm coming from for this contract.
Fantastic. Is this your first time singing with Le Concert Spirituel?
Yeah, it's my first time singing with them. I'm very
Yeah.
looking forward to it. It's gonna be very nice.
Wonderful. So I'm obviously really looking forward to speaking about your presence in Vancouver as the artist in residence. But before we do that, I just want to take a few steps back. And I'm just curious, what drew you to music and to singing? Was it very early in life? Can you walk us through a little bit your path?
So my mom always played opera at the house. She had an aunt that was actually a opera singer in the early 20th century. She was singing and had a choir also, so vocal music was always part of the household. Also, I was trained as a violinist originally, so I've been playing violin since I was 4, so also part of the symphonic repertoire. So I really grew up with a lot of classical music around me. And
Mm.
then I was an extra actually at the first, so I'm from Rimouski originally, and at the first Opéra Théâtre de Rimouski production, I think in probably in 2002 or something like that. I was an extra and I was presenting a birdcage to Leila in the Pearl Fishers. And I just remember the first notes that Ethel Guéret sang when she got on stage. And it was just magical moment. And I thought, oh my God, I have to do this when I grow up. And then she actually became my voice teacher a few years later. And the rest is history, as they say.
That's a beautiful story. That's
Yeah,
wonderful. So you got to taste the being in the light at a young age and decided
yeah,
that you to do that. So
yeah.
interestingly, that was an opera, and you mentioned playing the violin as well, and your repertoire is really very large. And I wanted to also comment on the fact that you really have done a lot of new music, a lot of contemporary music.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering what attracted you to, because it's sometimes very demanding repertoire. So what drew you to that?
Um, I guess it's a really it's a challenge. Some might say that if I'm drawn to it, might be I have some trauma somewhere because I'm trying to prove myself. I don't know. But I think it's a music that speaks to me somehow, and I find beautiful colors and beautiful effects, and it just makes me feel nice. I love singing that music, and it feels somehow, I don't know how, but it feels easy and accessible to my musical mind and to my voice. So it's always been, and I remember being in the Conservatoire in Montreal and just seeing covers of magazines with Barbara Hannigan doing crazy stuff and always thinking, I really want to do something similar to that.
Yes, yes, and
Yeah.
you're doing amazing things now. Maybe there's our audience might not know this role that you jumped in at the last minute in Written
Yeah.
on. Can you tell us about that experience a little bit?
So Written on Skin, I've actually done two jump-ins and almost did one again a few weeks ago, but then it was geographically complicated. But it's a role that very few singers know, and it was during COVID the first time that I jumped in. So I sang it at Montreal Opera in January and February of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And then I was called in mid-October 2020 saying the borders are closing. Americans were not allowed anymore in Europe. It was in Germany, the production they were doing, and the singer was unwell after 2 weeks of rehearsal and they had to replace her. So I jumped in just with a few days' notice and but then we had still had a month of rehearsal, so that was all right. And then the second time was last year in January of 2024. I was called on a Sunday evening saying, "Can you be in France in 10 days off book?" And then we had just a few days of rehearsal for a semi-staged concert version of it. So that was also very interesting, but always fun to jump back into it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if people don't know it, it's an incredible feat to sing that role. Really amazing. And I heard you do it live in Montreal. It was really,
Yeah,
really.
thank you.
So let's go now to Baroque music, which is another
Hmm.
passion of
Yeah.
yours. I'm wondering how Baroque music entered your life.
So actually, the very first concert I sang as a singer when I was 18, the first public performance I did, I sang excerpts from Orphée by Clérambault, the cantate, the French cantata, with baroque violin and with the harpsichord teacher José April at the harpsichord. So the very first public performance I did of voice was in a baroque French cantata. And it just always stuck with me. It took me many years actually when I was in school in the conservatoire. I always programmed Baroque music. The Baroque studio was not yet created. It just opened a few years on the last years that I was at the conservatoire. And then it took until 2021, fairly late in my career, was I professionally hired to sing Baroque music that I've always loved. And then it's been 5 years that it's a big part of my seasons now, and I really, really enjoy that.
Yeah, you were just recently in Quebec City
Hmm.
singing Les Ondes
Yeah.
by Mélisande McNabney, and you sang another French cantata there. Can you
Hmm.
tell us about that? And what's your connection to that piece?
Um, it's called we did two French cantatas. I have to say that I have a favorite one. There was the Monteclair, La Mort de Didon, which is just so beautiful and really, really colored. It's the traditional three arias cantatas, and it's about Didon who's been betrayed by her lover because Aîné is leaving Aeneas. What is it? I said Aeneas, I realized that's in French, but her lover is leaving the coast and going back on his quest, on his mythological quest. And she's just betrayed and abandoned, and she cries the loss of her loved one. And she really goes, it's really interesting because it was written in 1709, and you can already see the path of grieving, which is she's desperate at the beginning. She's almost in denial at the beginning. What is happening? Is this even possible? Then it's fury. She becomes very angry with her loss, and then she says, "But I will sacrifice myself instead of him because I do. He is in my heart, and I still love him." So it's a really, really beautiful piece.
Yeah, exquisite, beautiful music.
Yeah.
And we hear you in a little excerpt of it just now. Now, let's talk about your presence in Vancouver, which we're all very
Hmm.
excited about. You're going to perform in three concerts. I want to talk a little bit about all three, but let's start with the first one. You're bringing a recital centered around Schubert
Yeah.
with horn and fortepiano.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know why you chose the pieces, what other composers might be in the program. Give us a glimpse.
Yeah, so the idea came because the French horn player is actually my partner in life, and we were just discussing musical dreams one evening. And he, a few years ago, I think it was in 2023, and he just was like, "Oh, look, I actually started putting this program together when I was in school of a program with soprano and French horn of really unknown repertoire for horn, voice, and piano." And I was like, "Oh, well, this is a great idea." And I was offered shortly after a recital at Bourgie, and I put two and two together. And Olivier Godin said, "Would you like to come do a recital?" I said, "Yes, I actually have an idea." And then we took the idea even further. Um, Simon was playing in London in a with an orchestra, and I traveled with him. And we went to the British Library and scanned a bunch of unknown original first editions from the end of the 19th century, just scavenging it, just looking for little bits like gold diggers trying to find the little nuggets of gold that might have been forgotten in those books. And we really found beautiful pieces. Kalivoda is one of my coup de cœur, my just love at first sight with this composer. He's mostly known by bassoon players because he wrote, I think, a concerto, or those pieces that are just traditions in school and study pieces. So some bassoon players know him, but he wrote beautiful music, a few pieces with horn, and just a bunch of beautiful lieder, also of songs. And they're all so many of them are available on IMSLP, and they're really easily available. You don't have to go and scan some old scores at the British Library in London. But
Oh,
Kalivoda was one of the discoveries. Lachner also, Vincent's one of the Lachner brothers, which were contemporaries of Schubert, and his older brother was drinking at the same pub as Schubert, as you see in letters, and it's just really interesting. And of course, Auf dem Strom, which is the centerpiece of the recital by Schubert. And also, we have a piece I'm really excited about that Sandeep Bhagwati wrote for us. This idea of revisiting romantic poetry and romantic instruments through the lens of modern language. So it's the modern music with the romantic poetry, and it's a really nice three-song cycle that he wrote for us. So it's also very cool.
this is extraordinary. There's so much to discover in this
Yeah,
concert. I mean,
yeah,
these composers that you discovered at the British
hmm
Library,
yeah.
it's nice to know that they're all available online, but it's nice to go there and touch the paper, isn't it?
Well, some of them were not available online. Some of them were only there. Kalivoda you can find online, but yeah, it was really nice to discover everything.
Yeah, and then of course incorporating a piece of contemporary music, a piece by Sandeep Bhagwati.
Yeah,
Um, you mentioned your colleagues in passing, Simon Poirier, your partner in life on natural horn, and Olivier Godin, who is also the artistic director of the Salle Bourgie in
yeah,
Montreal, who is a wonderful pianist and forte
yeah,
pianist. So we're
yeah.
very excited about that concert here. Um, the other two concerts you're doing, there's Bach cantatas and then the Mozart Requiem.
Mhm.
Just curious, are these new pieces in your repertoire or old friends?
So the Bach cantatas are going to be new friends, and the Requiem is a recent old friend, I would say, because I've been listening to the Requiem and just singing. We had the John Elliott Gardner with Barbara Bonney and Anne-Sophie von Otter recording at home, and I think as a teenager I listened to it probably 5,000 times, singing on top of Barbara Bonney's voice and thinking, oh, one day it's going to be me. But I actually had to wait until a few months ago to sing it professionally for the first time, and I will be singing it three times in 2000 in the period of 12 months. So now it's going to be a good friend. And the cantatas I've never sung, but it's always a pleasure doing the piano and doing with everyone it's such a small vocal setting. So this is gonna be very nice.
I find myself too that once I started putting one piece in my repertoire, I would get asked to sing it like that year.
hmm
It's funny how
Yeah,
that happens.
yeah,
It's very useful.
yeah. Yeah, it's useful that it's in your voice and you just take it out of the library and sing it again. It's nice.
Yeah. There's another side of you. We talked about your multifaceted career earlier. So listeners may not know that in addition to your incredible singing career, which is, more extraordinary every year, that you have a degree in sustainable development that you
Hmm.
did the HEC in
Yeah,
Montreal.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, what in these are not necessarily a combination that singers would automatically do. So
Yeah.
what inspired you to pursue such a degree at the same time as you're pursuing a singing career?
Um, I've had some click moments as a young adult. I remember seeing the corporation in the early 2010s, and then a friend of mine who was a bit more activist brought me to Concordia. They have a really Cinema Politica, and we saw that documentary called The Light Bulb Conspiracy, which I highly recommend if you want to watch it. It's available on YouTube about planned obsolescence in society, and I just gained this perspective on our consumerism and our production modes that were so disastrous to the environment and to ourselves, to our survival as a species. And I slowly got into being more environmentally friendly through zero waste. And I always felt very torn because it's very paradoxical. I'm the worst environmentalist because I'm a singer. I travel so much, which is very terrible. So one day maybe I will hope I can travel less and still sing, or maybe I will give it up altogether. But it's for later. But when the pandemic hit, it had been a few years, probably 3 or 4 years, that I thought I really wanted to do more. And when I saw that my career was really slowing down, as was everyone else's careers in so many different fields, I thought it's really the opportunity to go. And my dad had friends in the public health in the government, and he said, "Oh, they're saying it's going to be at least 1 or 2 years before things go to normal. If you want to do a degree, maybe you have time." And I found that program at HSC that was just 2 years, and bing bang boom, I had time to do it. I started singing back. I never stopped singing during COVID, but then it just freed me the time to get a professional degree in that part of my life that had been really um, my biggest hobby. It's like the world upside down. I'm an artist that has a very my hobby is sustainability management.
And why not?
Yeah.
So you mentioned, the fact of being a singer involves a lot of travel. So on the environmental side, I understand, of course, that is not ideal, but there are other sides to sustainability. And as a young artist, um, how do you integrate some of those values in terms of sustaining a career? In terms of, do you integrate some of those either in your professional or your personal life?
Well, I do now. I do some columns on the radio I'm part of two shows on Radio-Canada, the French side of CBC. So I try to spread some ideas and make generalize the concepts of sustainability and try to get to it's not an easy job to be democratizing those ideas, but I think I try to do my part in this way. And as a singer, also, I do try to just sometimes with the directors and the people I know more to bring it up and be like, oh, what are your thoughts on this? And I've done some work with some orchestras. I'm trying to plan their first sustainability policy and see how they could approach that. We need a paradigm shift in the cultural world if we want to really integrate the values. So it's the chicken or the egg. So I try to maybe work both a little bit at the same time.
And that's a nice way of me to just let everybody know that on July 30th, you'll be leading a roundtable
Mhm.
around sustainability in the arts and music with other guests. And so that'll be a way for us to get to know that side of you.
Yeah.
Um, so after Vancouver, what's next for you? What are your great projects or aspirations?
So I go back to Europe a few weeks after. I will make a stop in Quebec to visit my family, and then I go back to Europe to sing again with Le Concert Spirituel. We do a Messiah in August, which is unheard of, but it will be interesting. And then next season, most of my work is focused in the spring, so I will have lots of time to hike in the Alps in Europe in the fall and rest because it's been almost 5 years since I haven't really stopped. So it will be a year of lots of singing at the end of the year, but then also taking time to study some repertoire, learn music I've had on my table for a long time, and take time to rest, which is also very important and valuable.
Yes, it sounds very sustainability led.
Yes, I'm trying to be sustainable with my own schedule and slow down.
Very good. Lastly, you've been to Vancouver quite a few times, haven't you already?
It will be my third time.
Your
Yeah.
third.
Yeah.
So when you're not in a rehearsal or on stage performing, what are your favorite things to do or places to see in Vancouver?
I love to eat Asian food. So I will always go for ramen, for dim sum, for Korean barbecue. The first thing that comes to mind is the great food in Vancouver and the sushi, of course. Um, it's not, I have those ideas of going on hikes, but it's not that easy without a car. So, and I've been working pretty hard when I was there, so it's mostly been centered around food and a few hikes that I've done. But it's nice to enjoy the natural landscape around Vancouver.
Yeah, maybe we'll have time since you're here for,
Yeah, maybe I'll have one day to go.
I hope
If I
so.
go rock climbing, I can't with my contract, right? Some
No,
upper houses don't allow it.
no, maybe Stanley Park, but we'll see.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for your time, especially being jet lagged, just coming off a plane. We wish you all the best for your concerts now in Halle, and we really look forward to welcoming you in Vancouver. Thank you, Magali.
Thank you so much, Suzie. It will be a pleasure.
Sur les routes de